Alright, so with chapter 328 of the My Hero Academia story, we were finally introduced to the presences of some international heroes, a concept we had always known to be present within the world to some degree, especially by way of the first and third theatrical films, but never to such an extent in regards to the manga. In fact, with the presences of Salam and Big Red Dot from World Heroes Mission, this is by far the most we have seen content of a film be addressed in the manga proper. With that being said, however, the character deserving of the most intrigue is completely new to us. The #1 hero of the United States of America, Stars and Stripes, is on her way to Japan. Now, this is a very fascinating character indeed. As expressed with our general discussion of the chapter, she looks like a female All Might. Over the course of the series, we have seen several people who knew All Might back during his glory days, from mentors like Shimura and Gran Torino, to sidekicks like David Shield from movie 1 and Sir Night Eye. Yet what Stars and Stripes stands to be is something entirely different, a protege and student. Presumably not too unlike the situation between All Might and Deku, which is something somewhat touched upon in the case of Mirio as once being a potential candidate for One for All, but the difference is that Mirio and All Might never actually met at the time. But again, when it comes to Stars and Stripes, his influence clearly shows. The overall appearance of Stars and Stripes is rather different from the typical female depiction in the series. Now, don't get me wrong, we've had some buff kick-ass ladies before, such as Miruko or Shimura, but even the facial structure of Stars and Stripes is unique. However, this may at the same time be a feature intended to indicate to us visually that she is indeed a foreigner. And on that note, her heeding of All Might summons does not seem to have been officially sanctioned, and so in that case, you could say that her sense of justice supersedes her desire to stay in line and do as she is told. Values we may imagine were instilled into her by way of All Might. Now, stereotypically, Americans are big on freedom, and so it makes sense for this sort of character to deviate from the instructions of an official or superior in some way, shape, or form. But now with all this being said, I'm left to wonder if Stars and Stripes is aware of One for All. Because if All Might told her, that would certainly exemplify his trust, but also stand to raise the question, did he ever consider her to be a potential successor? I mean, not even David Shield knew about it. Now, in terms of the successor prospect, perhaps with her being in America, although relatively safe from the dominion of All for One, would be too estranged from the issues that so thoroughly demanded the attention of the power. In fact, I would also argue that despite the previous wielders being desperate to keep the flames of hope going by passing the quirk off to anyone they could with good values, All Might was not like that at all. All Might, more than just keeping the power going, wanted to actually do something with it. His greatest ambition at the time being the ascension of a symbol of peace, a dream he had shared with David Shield during his time in the States, and so I can only imagine he would do a similar thing in the case of Stars and Stripes as his protege. Virtues that would certainly substantiate an already credible and powerful hero rising up to a high position such as #1. And with a name such as Stars and Stripes, you can imagine what she stands for and that she has a good bit of patriotism to her. With that being said, for as great as all this seems to be on paper, I'm not so sure things were actually all that great. For one, All Might was only in the States for so long before returning to Japan to fight the good fight against All for One. Secondly, All Might has rarely, if ever, been a noteworthy teacher. Leading by example and such, sure, but straight up tutelage, not so much. And that's him at the end of his career and beyond when he is a veteran. What we are talking about in this case is an All Might fresh out of high school, so I really have to wonder how much of a master the guy really was. Now, what would really be interesting is if he and Stars and Stripes ever had any romantic relations. I mean, you have to understand that although not to the same degree as Endeavor, All Might sacrificed a great deal in order to become the hero he ultimately ended up being, and that includes a happy home life. I mean, even after over 300 chapters, we know so very little about his domestic life, and that's simply because he doesn't have one. He, for the most part, kept society on his metaphorical back for decades, and to be completely honest, in such a line of work, friends and family are a liability, a danger to oneself as well as others. And so this to me is the one opportunity to get a glimpse of such a thing from this character, which I for one would really like to see. But speaking of home life, I would like to turn our attention to another American hero in the world of My Hero Academia. And funny enough, he too was described to be their #1 hero. From the My Hero Academia Vigilante spin-off manga, we have Captain Celebrity, an especially scandalous yet incredibly capable hero. Now, mind you, contents from the Vigilante story have made their way into the series proper before, like in the case of Shirakumo and Aizawa's childhood. The thing about Vigilantes, mind you, is that the story takes place a handful of years prior to the beginning of the main story. And so with that, the rise of Stars and Stripes to the #1 spot more than likely happened recently in the last few years. Now, Captain Celebrity was for the most part the human embodiment of toxic celebrity culture, and so his fall from grace may have been as simple as being cancelled, to be fair. But there is also the possibility that he straight up chose to be a family man as opposed to being a hero. Towards the end of his time in the manga, Captain Celebrity and his wife had a baby, and for as troublesome as he had been in the past, the guy really started to turn his life around and was just thinking about them. Previously, he was all about the attention and admiration of others, but I would like to think that he was able to find all that and more with a happy home life. Either way, Stars and Stripes now holds the position. But as for our next consideration, what could her quirk possibly be? Well, there's pretty much nothing to go off. However, I will say that I certainly hope it is not super strength. We've had more than enough of that as is, but let's not overlook the fact that the woman is standing atop a stealth bomber with absolutely no issue. Interestingly enough, this is exactly something I would expect of Captain Celebrity, considering his extremely capable quirk, flight. But you know what, most typically, high-ranking heroes are those that possess especially powerful and or capable quirks. And in the case of an American hero, it would stand to reason that her quirk is really powerful and or really capable, and not just her, but just about any American hero, and that is because of All for One. You see, at the height of his infamy beginning with the first generation of metahumans, mind you, he culled the strong. All for One straight up destroyed anyone that possessed remarkable and or powerful quirks and did so for generations. Meanwhile, the United States never had such an issue, and so it stands to reason that they would have a more notable quirk pool. Not to mention the country is far larger in comparison. With that being said, the feat of #1 among such presumably stiff competition is impressive indeed. Now, Deku isn't exactly his usual overly enthusiastic self these days, but he is more accepting of help at the same time, and I would not be surprised to know he is familiar with this hero at all, as such a huge All Might fan himself. There is a lot to look forward to when it comes to this character, and so I hope you will consider sticking around with us for all that is to come. We recently surpassed 300,000 subscribers and cannot thank you all enough for your support of all that we do through all the trials and tribulations we have been through. So thank you so very much. The best we can do in exchange is make the best content we possibly can. So subscribe to Plot Armor with notifications on to never miss a thing, because when it comes to bringing you some of the best My Hero Academia content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. You can connect with us over on social media and our Discord server linked in the description as well. And as always, I am Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.